the theme that, well, for the month, actually extended now, is around digital health. So, and it's like guys like you, and like, seasonal professionals got your particular approach. And you probably see the world like I do, in a certain way or a different way than others. So we'll talk about that, and then and what approach you use, which will be your version of the 6 hats. So most of the guys, the audience is really same as us. The practitioners, they're in delivery. And ex Big Four consultancy, and also independent guys. So they have their view of the world, and I think like I wrote my book because what I saw and at the time, and I thought, why is everyone still doing it that way?
It's a good book. It's a good book.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah. No, I when you reached out, I laughed because I bought the book during lockdown.
Oh, thank you very much.
So as you can tell from my picture, I like books, but I'm slightly dyslexic, so I'm quite a slow reader.
Yeah.
So and I'm always finding life's getting in the way of me reading. So there's always apparently I have a great library of books, but I've only read a third of them. Yeah.
Okay. You wouldn't be alone there. I've got a beautiful library of books sitting in storage right now, and I've got one back in New Zealand that I shipped from Australia to New Zealand. I think I'm going to send it over here. The same thing. You get inspired at the time, so you buy a lot and go, I'm going to get to them, and you never get to them.
Yeah.
But I heard this great quote though. It's not the about books. It's not the most important book you read. It's the book you write. So so I only heard that after I wrote my book. I was going, that's interesting. It might have motivated me to write my book sooner. So
and what did motivate you to write it? Because it's quite a piece. It's quite a lot of work in there.
Yeah. So thanks. I think it was my frustration at the time. I'd seen a lot of, like probably yourself, you get called into these big projects, and you wonder why they're doing the things they are. And is it busyness, or where they end up? It's like I use this analogy all the time, but they're heading this way, and they're hoping, it's like a bow and arrow. There's no way in the world that you'll end up the way you want to go. So you've got to start in the direction you want to end. And I Stephen Covey or Dale Carnegie, 7 Habits. Begin with end in mind. I think I think when maybe technology guys have taken that saying, and not just begin at the end in mind or have the end in mind at the start. They start at the end in mind at technology, and it's like, well, wait a minute. There's the part before the technology is understanding the problem. So let's understand the problem first, and then we'll build something to, maybe it's a technology solution, or part of the solution is technology, and make sure that addresses the problem. But so I get called into these big projects, and they are deep in the design or build and haven't quite understood the problem. I go, well, whose problem are you trying to solve here? And so
we're not trying to solve a problem, Heath. We're just trying to deliver.
Yeah.
It's not, for most of the people involved, they have at best a weak understanding of the actual problem. Yeah. Because they're so far removed from the actual business problem. Their perspective means that they can only see through the lens of the delivery vehicle or change vehicle that they live in, right? And quite often, if it's a delivery partner, the commercials probably incentivize them that way as well.
Oh yeah. I try to teach the guys and tell the guys, if if you deliver, and you deliver well and fast, efficiently, you get called back for more work. You don't have to try and drag this thing out to last as long as you can, and then you under deliver. But you might have produced some beautiful deliverables, but it wasn't the result thereafter. The result was the transformation, not all the artifacts that got produced. If you deliver the transformation, hey, you're going to do a different transformation for them. You started HR, then you're on to finance, and then you're on to operations. But trying to continue the longevity of an existing project when you could have done it faster. Yeah, the commercials, whoever wrote those commercials is
But again, it is part of the reason for that. The person who wrote the commercials are too far away from the problem too. Yeah?
Yes. Oh yeah. I have a thing. If you might have read it in the book, about if you're looking into your governance board of bodies or the room where the governance boards are, and you can't see the stakeholders represented in the business in that room, then you've got a problem.
Yeah.
That's the first problem. I remember going to a business design authority that had no business representatives in it, and they actually changed the name to solution design because business was a bad word. I was like, whoa, really? So you guys are technology guys making decisions for the business. How do the business feel about that? Oh, they haven't consulted them. So whoa. So we got a problem to start with.
Right.
Yeah, and that project had been running for 2 years. And when I got called in and said, look, we're behind time, over budget. We got 6 months to deliver this, and we're out of money. Whoa. I can help you. I'm not a magician.
Yeah. But technology to a lot of people is magic, right? So for them, their ability to associate the, say, technology components in a technology system, how easy do you think it is for most people to associate technology components to the problem? Yeah. Okay. Most of the time I find it's almost become like an article of faith for the membership of the room. Yeah. It's kind of like, it's been so hard. Yeah. We must be doing the right thing.
Yeah. Oh, it amazes me. There's a lot of faith. I think the faith is unfortunately, let's say, rested or placed in the wrong place, possibly at the wrong time. A few steps that need to be done, and they're jumping ahead. Like I try to explain to the client, there's a process to this thing, right? First, we're going to do this, and this, and this, and this. And why we're doing that is so that we can group these common this process into common things. And first off, we're going to do why we're doing it, and then who's involved and what's the problem. And so what you're going to talk about, what you want to talk about, that's great. We can talk about that design, but just bear in mind it's a process. And then where you are in the process is way down there. And we can have that conversation if you want to have that conversation, but bear in mind that we've not done any of this other stuff first. So we're going to have it. I can capture it and record it, but then we're going to still have to do this other stuff. And they say, oh, okay. But when they start getting carried, no one tells them there's a process. They think it's okay. Let's just build this thing and we're done. But, well, if that was that easy. Yeah. Okay. So
it's what's easier though for individuals? Is it easier for individuals to understand the process, or is it easier for individuals to be around the campfire telling tribal stories about what their experiences might mean? That the process is somehow something that is almost placed upon them rather than something they can have control over.
Yeah, that's a very good point. The I don't, from the business perspective, but I've seen consultants and join teams with established teams, and they have a particular approach or standard or some method that they like to adhere to, and they go around to the business and they say, we have now adopted, for example, BPMN. We must do now everything in business process notation modeling language. And so anyone that creates a process map must use this standard. And so it's like, do you mean just this division, the transformation division, or do you mean everyone in the organization? And so they go, no, everyone in the organization must do it by that standard. I said, how does that work in practice? Well, we send them off on a 2-day course to do. I said, okay, and how is that? How is that working for you? Oh, they don't like it. I said, why do they not like it? It's because they don't understand it. And I said, so what do they understand? Quite simple. So like a UML flowchart kind of thing. So yeah. So who is the BPM notation for them? For you or for them? Oh, it's for us really. I said, well, why do you impose that on the business? And the next question is, so how does it work for your change projects? When they engage you? Oh, they don't engage us now because they're scared of us. I said, yeah. So yeah, basically, you guys are like speak French, a new type of language, and it's pretty special. It's different. You use it to communicate, and the business speak English, and they use that language, and they have used that language for some time to communicate, and it's a good language. They understand it. It's pretty simple. But you want to teach them how to speak French, but not just any type of French. You want them to be fluent at French, but they have no problem with their English. This is the real problem. You need to get better at speaking English.
Yeah.
They're not, so they go, oh, we don't like that. So, who are you here to help, the business or yourselves?
But yeah, we're back to vantage points. So if you're operating, let's say in the operating model, business function in the operating model, okay? How good do you think most people's understanding is of the actual business?
Not very good.
Not very good.
Yeah, they understand their silo.
Yeah. They understand, well, they try to rationalize what they experience, like we all do.
Yep.
And for most of them, that their understanding of their organization relates to two things. One, the comms that is driven at them, and largely comms in a lot of companies is driven at you.
Yeah. Consultation. Yep.
No, you're talking at me, you're not talking to me.
Yes.
And then two, it's my personal network. So how I perceive a company is based on my personal network. So I might think because there's great guys, in a particular department, that department's really important to the business because they're great guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I find increasingly, and it's where I made a career shift. So I started off very much in, I would say, roles in the operating model.
Okay. Yep.
And I got sufficiently frustrated that I decided this isn't working for me. I need to be in the business model. Yeah.
Cool.
Because if I'm not in the business model, then, well, I'm certainly not transforming anything. I might be changing some stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm unlikely to be transforming very much. And so that's a career decision I made several years ago. And I have to say, on a personal level, I find my sort of day-to-day work much more rewarding as a consequence.
Okay, so you were originally in the, let's say, the tactical, operational, and you went to in the operations model to the business model, more strategic.
Yeah, well, it was a career choice that I decided I needed to do, just simply because I was getting so frustrated being in or having a career of what I would describe as primarily op model roles. And the classic role for me that I think evidences this more than any is the infamous enterprise architect role. Yeah. Where for most enterprise architects, I don't know what kind of architect they might actually be, but I promise you, you're not actually impacting the enterprise.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you'd think being an enterprise architect, being in a strategy and architecture function, you had quite a large group of people who had faith.
Faith. That's it. Again. Yep.
That they were instrumental to the business. Yeah. But to the business, they had a different view.
Yeah.
And the business was right, of course. Yeah. The business was
right. Yeah.
Because that example you're talking about, so in that actual organization, which I'm not going to name, they kicked off a end-to-end process management function. Bought a very big, expensive enterprise tool to store all those representations.
Yeah.
Set off all the training. That's why I smiled when you were telling me that. And yeah, they create the function group. Yeah. The business must be bemused by it. Wasn't entirely sure what the business purpose for it was.
Yeah, what the value was. Yeah.
But it seemed to make the EAs very happy.
Oh.
And as they seemed grumpy most of the time, then the business was kind of like, yeah, okay, fine.
Let them do what they want to do.
Yeah. So I started off. I actually started off as in very bizarre fashion, being involved in a research project in AI when I left university.
Okay.
And that was complete random chance. I found myself just speaking to a couple of guys late one night in someone's house. I was acting as chaperone for an Asian girl who wanted basically me to escort her while she went on a date with a older guy. They were at the cinema. She wanted me to hang around. I went, okay, fine. Yep. A couple of other guys there. I said, okay, I might as well, I'm going to be here for a little while. I'll grab a beer. Let's get chatting. We got chatting, came to the end. Couple came back. My friend came back. Two guys I've been chatting to said to Tony, who'd taken my friend on a date, hey, you know that guy we were looking for? We found him. And of course, I didn't realize they were talking about me. So I did that for 3 years.
Okay.
That was intense. Very different from anything. Well, it's not the typical job you do when you leave uni, right?
Yeah.
Then that kind of came to an end. They had a company. They were doing a lot of .com development, .com bubble bursts. They burst with it. So I found at that time no one had heard of AI and machine learning, Heath.
Yeah.
So it's not like now. Now I'd be fine. But back then, you went and go and spoke to an employment agency about any of that stuff. They just looked at you like they looked at me like I was a crazy.
Yeah. What are you talking about?
So exactly, what are you talking about? Yeah, what can you actually do? Yeah. So I ended up getting into project program management. I got a bit bored of that. I then got into some more kind of commercial roles. Then eventually got into technology.
Yep.
Worked my way up to become an enterprise architect. Had that epiphany that this isn't working.
Yeah.
And then the next stakeholder, he'd been headhunted by Deloitte, and he said, look, you're wasted over there. Come and join me over here and do something interesting.
I see that you did a couple of stints there at Deloitte.
Yeah. So I helped him set up an innovation function at Deloitte. So that's about setting up process governance for the partners, which was interesting because partners don't tend to always like to share, what's going on with their business and
build up a little empire.
So and then sort of try and I guess kind of incubate products, coach directors who very clever, capable people, but they weren't necessarily technical. They had no background in this. What they sold was professional services.
Yep.
So suddenly now they're told they're a product owner, and they're like, oh, "Is that good? Is that not good? What is that?"
Sure. Yeah.
Not sure. My partner seems very happy, but that sometimes worries me because of expectation management, and so that was quite interesting. Then did helped some friends of mine with an M&A, so I helped them get acquired.
Okay, good work.
And then helped a Portuguese DevOps company become a scale-up.
Oh wow! Okay.
So they and that involved getting them onto a number of the kind of government, UK government frameworks.
G Cloud and etc. Yeah. Okay.
and then then back to and then I kind of got into. I got approached by, because I get pretty much everything word of mouth. I got approached by some people wanting to do target operating model stuff, which I've been involved in before. So and that's kind of been mainly my shtick, I guess, target Tom stuff for a while now. It's what I'm doing a bit of now at UK HSA.
Health and care.
And then during the, I think we all had a moment of reflection during the pandemic. So I just said, look, I need to be controlling my career a little bit more. I need to be getting involved in more things. And so I became a non-exec director in a sustainability startup.
Very good.
It's a company called Carbon Kapture. So that's all around carbon capture via seaweed farming.
Oh, interesting.
So
in the UK?
In the UK, but we are currently in negotiation on a number of joint ventures with farms in other parts of the world, like places like Singapore, for example. Seaweed's quite interesting. So it because it has a rapid growth rate.
The seaweed grows fast.
Seaweed grows fast, and what that means is, as long as you're careful with its carbon life cycle, so you're careful with how it's going to be used at the end of the life cycle, so what product it is going to be used in, that gives you a carbon negative footprint. And then obviously then data monetization kicks in there, and that's then something that is interesting to say, owners of data centers in Singapore who have a big issue, and find some kind of carbon offset.
See, they can sell credits.
Yeah, effectively. So they can offset part of their carbon debt
footprint.
Via the seaweed farm.
I see. Okay,
so it's kind of funky. I quite like it. And obviously it's an interesting, it's a good industry to be involved in.
So you would offer your enterprise architecture background about how to structure it to get it ready to scale, to expand to different countries?
Actually, in that, so because I'm a non-exec director, so they use me based on, I guess, kind of my breadth of my experience or my commercial background. Obviously, I've helped them in terms of putting them through a ideation and incubation process, and I do most of their commercials and legal stuff for them. They actually don't use very much of my EA background because that's not right now. That's not what the business needs. The business needs to kind of get on, kind of get out there and start sort of selling the offset from the farms. So yeah,
where the immediate need is.
Yeah, exactly. So it's quite exciting. And then I'm sort of involved in a consultancy called HiveMind. So they're like a member network company. So you had some of these kind of organizations in the 70s and 80s. So they're kind of very much member led. So you kind of get members get together and decide they want to, that there's potentially an opportunity in the market. So sort of they go through an ideation and incubation period. They pitch it.
And then the team members come together and work out how they deliver.
And then basically, if the kind of the collective membership think, you guys are onto something here, then let's start shaping it and thinking about how we take it to market. So
very good.
So and both of those things are things that that I only probably got involved in because of
The
last
pandemic.
year and the headspace that gave me just to take a step back from my life and go, like I think a lot of people did, and go, yeah, I need to be broadening my horizons a little bit, and I need to kind of feel that I'm involved, and just taking maybe a bit more control.
Yeah, I was going to say more control, proactively.
Yeah,
as opposed
exactly.
to reactive. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I'm a family man, Heath. I've got 2 young teenagers, so it's not always easy being proactive in my position, but I've got absolutely no regrets in that choice. I'm busy, but I'm happy and busy. So
yeah, good one. So you must have now, with this, a pretty vast experience. So you have, like I come into different projects and I see certain things done certain ways. So what you've seen in, maybe most recently in the Department of Health and Social Care, is a well-established organization. They've probably got teams and teams of different consultants specializing in different parts of delivery, and then you come along and you go, okay guys, what are we doing and why we're doing it, and you got a particular approach that you follow to get them on board?
Yeah, so I would say my approach normally is to understand what the actual purpose is. So I joined what was then the Test and Trace program.
Okay. Yep.
And the purpose of the Test and Trace program was all around delivering testing capacity to the population.
Yep. Across the country.
Yeah, across the country. So how do we test people? And then once we've tested them, how do we determine the best way of then, tracking them and effectively encouraging them to sort of act appropriately. Yeah.
Yep.
That was the purpose of the program, and obviously that came about as a lot of governments suddenly found themselves in the middle of a global pandemic. Now we haven't had a global pandemic like this since Spanish influenza in 1980. Yeah, Spanish flu. And one of the things I did, and maybe it's my research background, I actually did quite a lot of research on that pandemic. And there were some really interesting things I found about it that I then took into meetings that I was in.
Yep.
And one of them was, so at the time, people were only starting to use the language of variants of concern, variants of interest and variants of concern. But if you look back at the history of Spanish flu, that was, it may have been called that, but that was absolutely, a lot of the analysis was all around the variants that occurred from 1918 to 1920. Because things about pandemics they don't kill you with one punch. Yeah. They're much more like that skilled boxer. Yeah, where these combinations.
Down.
Yeah, and so the biggest killer as a variant wasn't in 1918, Heath. It was in 1920.
Oh, a couple of years later.
A couple of years later. And so the minute I saw that, I went, okay, we're gonna be on this
ride
for a little while. Yeah. Now, on the one hand, we've got vaccines, so that kind of puts us in the plus column. On the other hand, our interconnected lifestyles actually make us more vulnerable than a lot of population groups were back in 1918. And what made Spanish flu such a killer then was, of course, the end of World War I. because
people
that
returning back
created,
to home.
yeah, people going back home. You had huge population migrations, and so what we have now is we're at that point where it's endemic. It's not like smallpox. It's cross species, so it's not down to just us. And there is no historical record, Heath, of us ever eradicating a virus that is cross species.
So we've got to live with it.
So we'll live with it.
Yep.
And but it's recognizing, and this maybe segues us nicely to the data topic. It's then recognizing both the virus's behaviors and how our behaviors influence that in both positive and negative ways. So one of the things that we've done, and it's as part of that move from test and trace, which is all about this is landed, it's crisis management time. We've just got to create massive capability to push testing out. We don't know how dangerous this is, but it's more dangerous than we thought it was going to be. So it's quite reactive.
Yep.
And what's happened, I would say, over the last sort of 6 to 9 months is there's been that switch to proactivity. So the UK Health Security Agency, their purpose is about prevention. It's not about treatment. Yeah. So that and so that's a quite a big shift in terms of philosophy, and it also means that the agency needs radically different capabilities than just massive testing facilities. So, and obviously, a key part of that is the role of data science, behavioral science, combined with genomics. So you put that together, and then you start thinking, okay, so if we've had enterprise level, truly enterprise level capability, where we are pushing out, we're mass producing supply because we can't predict demand. So now let's create an agency that's going to flip that on its head. Now our focus is, what's the nature of the demand? Because that's actually the right question. What's the
two
nature
questions?
Of the
Okay.
So what we've been doing in terms of data is we've been combining data sets, many of which are available with the Office of National Statistics, combining those with data sets that are not publicly available, things like prevalence within a geographical region, vaccination rates in a geographical region, multiple indices of deprivation. Combining those data sets to provide insight into where demand and need might lie.
Okay, to data-driven insights.
Data-driven insights, and that has that's then leading to interesting discussions around, okay, maybe we need to move from a B-52 to more of a cruise missile approach. We actually need to look at specific pockets of our population that for these indices, this combination tells us that these population groups are going to be more vulnerable. And that then allows you to be much more targeted in terms of then how you will look to proactively test those areas and then treat them.
Okay.
So we're going almost from like macro testing to micro testing now. Yeah, because what that then allows you to do is it allows you to control, it allows you to have much greater emphasis, sort of emphasis and control on the ceiling. Yeah. So the way I always describe it with the virus is you've got a ceiling and you've got a floor. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And ceiling is effectively how high the R rate is, how high prevalence is. Yeah. And then the floor is how much of the population you're able to test, treat, and cover. Yeah. And you want to keep both the ceiling and the floor as low as possible. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, because if you don't have a mechanism to understand the patterns of prevalence, then you'll have a hard time influencing the height of that ceiling. Yeah.
Yep.
The height of the floor is more driven then by those indices. Yeah. So what are the types of people? Yeah. What are the types of people that are more likely to get the virus than others? And some of that might, some of it that, there's strong correlations, for example, we know with diabetes, with obesity, but there are also strong correlations with factors like poverty, certain geographical areas, parts of
location. Yep.
Location. Some of your certain socio-economic groups.
Yep.
Yeah. Certain cultural groups. And each of those act as almost like their own indices. So when you combine them, it almost can give you like in crude form, and give you like a bingo card. Yeah.
I was going to say heat map.
The more you lighten up the bingo card, the more you know, right, that is an area we need to keep an eye on. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Not because the virus has agency per se, but because the virus is going to find it easier to start propagating in that geographical region than it will necessarily in the neighboring regions.
Okay, so the starting point is, bring it back to the starting point. So the starting point, I think we're on the same page here. You talk about the purpose. So you get in and make sure that everyone's clear on probably the one thing, the future, the vision, what they got in mind, and then you, I think is a key point there is your history or lessons learned, so you understand what's happened before. I did one of my first projects in the UK was at a government organisation that was implementing a legislation in insurance. They've just recently done a banking insurance implementation. And I started and I said, great, you've done this before. They said, yep, big one. I said, okay, what was it called? Basel 2. Okay, great. What is this one called? Solvency 2. Oh, okay, sounds very similar. Different market. So have you got anyone else on the project that did the Solvency 2, the Basel 2? Yeah, you know that farewell that you went to yesterday? That was her. That's the last remaining bit. I said, you get lessons learned? No. Oh, bugger. So I think that's a thing that's often overlooked. The lessons learned. You don't want to repeat. Do the things that work. Don't do the things that didn't work. The old almost agile. What are you going to keep doing? What's working, keep doing. What's not working, what you didn't do, start doing. And so your goal there was about capability, to build this capability, but a capability that changed.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. So it's getting organizations to almost kind of be able to separate what they need to do, which obviously should derive from their purpose, with the patterns of behavior and culture that derive from how they do them. And again, it's that kind of, those tribal traditions can form quite quickly, particularly under pressure If you imagine these kind of organizations with something like a pandemic or some other kind of event, when you have that external event that creates that intensity, you end up creating a very strong culture.
Oh yes, I was about to say that. Yeah, you've now made it even stronger. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a good side to having a strong culture, but if there's a bad side, typically it's strong cultures don't like to change.
Yes. Yeah.
Because there's an element of what makes them a strong culture is pride in who they are and what they do and how they do it. Yeah. So if you try and engage an organization that has a strong culture and you start talking using the T word, the much maligned T word, that for them is almost an existential threat to their identity.
Yeah.
Because you're questioning the basis for their pride.
Yes. Yep.
And so trying to get people to understand that we're not saying you did a bad job. We're saying the job's changed.
Yeah.
The job's changed now. This stuff that you're using, do you think it's going to help you to do that new job? Or is it designed to be really good at the old job?
Yep.
It's designed to be really good at the old job.
Yeah. But you need to, how do you go about that? If there's, I talk about in transformation, there's the 4 major causes of failure: lack of business user involvement, lack of senior leadership support, changing requirements, and incomplete requirements. And all of them are nothing to do with technology, but all to do with people.
Yeah.
It's a psychological problem.
So, what I used to do is I used to try and find out who was a decision maker, and go in strong, and then be surprised when I didn't get the reaction I was looking for.
Okay. Yeah, that's the old approach.
Now, yeah. So what I do now is I work on their direct reports. Wait until their direct reports begin to feel that there is a problem.
Okay. And
then I get invited, and I sort of suggest that feeling you've got, that little kind of
inclination
itch. Yeah. I'm not saying I've got it exactly right, but this might be that itch.
Yeah.
And if that's true, or I'm in the rough vicinity, there are some things that we could do to scratch that itch.
Yeah.
But I'm going to leave it with you now. I'm over there. You know where to find me.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you'll lead the horse to water.
Yeah. And what I find typically happens is 2 to 3 months later, I get that tap on the shoulder. But notice it still takes that time.
Yes. Yeah. There's a lag.
There's a lag. Yeah. Because I found that in terms of a successful outcome, that's the best approach. Yeah. Yep. Now, don't get me wrong, Heath. I'd love those 2-3 months back by the time they actually engaged me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, the choices I might have outlined, some of those doors may have closed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I have learned that the biggest challenge is that cultural identity one, and none more so than the man or woman in charge.
Okay. Yeah. Would you call it the hippo, the highest?
Yeah.
Important paid person. Yeah.
And they have to be given the freedom to ruminate and reflect on what you've shared with them. Yeah.
So just to play back in their own words.
And hopefully what you've shared with them, you're opening their eyes to and trying to counter the confirmation bias that we all live with.
Yep.
You're now opening their eyes to breadcrumbs that maybe previously they hadn't been able to perceive.
Yep.
Yeah. And then eventually the weight of that leads to them to sort of go, okay, now I've got to do something.
Yep.
Whatever that thing is.
Yeah. I think I something similar, or even the same as, like I tell the client, you know, the business architecture will make visible the invisible. The things that you didn't quite see before, like the breadcrumbs, and for the same reason, lead them to make their own decision, partly so that they think it was their own decision, and hopefully it was their own decision, but they own it. And
that's the key thing, they own it.
Yeah.
They have to own it. You can't own it for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
They have to own it. Yeah. So and I was actually on a call today where a colleague of mine and I, we've got a workshop we've got to produce, and there's always a fine balancing act between what's the percentage of facilitation versus what's the percentage of insight. Yeah. And again, this is something I've learned the hard way. So what I used to do is I used to go along, I'd do loads of work, produce loads of material, I'd be super excited, I was going to show them, you know, the answers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'd go
you knew
along,
the answers.
Yeah, that's why I knew the answers, right? And I'd go along, and again, it didn't quite get the outcome I was expecting. Yeah. Okay. Whereas now, what I try to do is I try and think about the framing. So I focus on the framing. Yeah. And then within that framing, I basically say, okay, this is the solution space. Yeah. So I've helped them by the framing.
Yep.
Yeah. But now I'm going to facilitate them to come up with an answer that they're comfortable with, because to your point, Heath, they got to own it. Yeah. And so where my insight, I guess, comes is not in the actual workshop itself. Yeah. It's in the framing of that workshop. Yeah. Yeah. So I'll use simple things like an agenda. Yeah. I'll use an agenda because I've thought about it. You know, I've kind of, maybe taken the pooch for a walk or whatever. I've thought about it, and I've gone, right, here's where the solution will be found. I now need them to come over here to this space. Yeah. Once I've got them in that space, we're all good. Yeah.
Just getting them there is the thing.
Just got to get them there. And that's why I said to my colleague today, I said, look, we could do loads of work showing them how clever we feel we are, but you know what? That's not going to get us the outcome we want. Or they want. Yeah. Let's just frame the problem. Let's get them in that space. Largely, they'll do the rest. And if they need a little nudge, we can give them little nudges.
Okay. So you have, from previous experience, you've learned leading the horse to water and forcing the horse to drink isn't going to get the outcome you want. So through now experience, you've led them to the trough. You laid the trough, maybe a couple of nice things across the top of it, so they might just dip their tongue in it.
Yeah.
And they got a taste, and then they go, okay, I think we can do this.
Yeah. And then it's them doing it. Yeah, it's them doing it. It builds, because one other thing about that approach, it builds their confidence to change. Rather than you trying to instruct change on them. Yeah. I mean, you were talking earlier about technology and business. Yeah. So often technology programs fail with the business because they try to instruct the business on the change. Yeah. I mean, I love the we've got to change our business processes because the new system we've installed won't support our existing ones.
Yeah. It doesn't last too long, that one. Yeah.
Well, what happens always in that case, I find, Heath, is, you know, if it's like an enterprise grade thing that the CFO spent a lot of money in, it's probably going to hang around for a while, but everyone then will just go into what I call skunk works. Yeah, they'll do everything they can to avoid the pain.
Oh yeah.
Of going through that new workflow that the CFO has spent millions on. Yeah.
Oh yes. Yep. I just came from, if you saw my CV, the last role I was on, very much similar to where you are at one of your clients right now, and they just done something similar, an enterprise installation of a off the shelf and no adoption at all, and that is the most painful. And I was told, you are not allowed to change this system any way, shape, or form, although it is the most painful system they've ever experienced in the 15 years of operation. I said, so why is it? Because it was a painful implementation. I said, why do you still continue using it and doing and not adopting it at all? And because someone upstairs made a decision for someone else. So, oh boy, yeah.
And then yeah, you know, it's then almost sort of, so quite often I'll be with a sponsor and sort of we'll say, okay, so how do we think the board's gonna buy that?
Yeah. And
I'll look at them. I already know the answer. I'll look at them and I'll let them reflect, and they go, yeah, I'm not sure it's a good idea. No, it's not a good idea. Yeah. So how could we reposition it or repackage it, or what additional value could we add? Almost like a sugar lump with the medicine. Yeah. So we need them to take the medicine that maybe that they've you know, what they've bought isn't quite as nice as the shiny slides they were shown. But if we're going to do that, we've got to make it palatable. So we've got to offer them something else. Yeah. Give them some kind of win. Some kind of win that we can then get them focused on the win, and they won't feel quite so bad about the medicine.
I've been there. Yeah, it's I want to say names, but
no.
So you know, it's a problem with I think the technology has it's almost like they got the talking stick, and because the budget seems to be spent there, and because they have the talking stick and the closest person to owning the budget of that talking stick, they have the rights to say and do what they like, without, unfortunately, the voice of the business.
Yeah, I mean, I've also seen it from the business side as well. So, you know, in one like global brand organization, I went in and I saw huge amounts of shadow IT.
Oh yeah.
Massive amounts of shadow IT. And of course, because of the way that kind of combination of new programming languages, data analytics, cloud, that kind of mix just allows technology acceleration on a level that kind of, you know, when I think back, you know, 5 years ago, and you used to have like the monolithic programs, and you used to have your kind of your giant Gantt charts that used to be printed out in A0 and they go across the walls and stuff, and
the war rooms.
And now the business, you know, quite often business units will go, I've got no time for that, and I've got the scars, and I still find it difficult. I still wake up with nightmares at night over that program. Now I've got these guys, and they say that they can just spin me something up, and they'll do it as some MVP, and I don't need to go through any of IT's governance processes. And they want to charge me 1/10 of what I thought it would cost. And why wouldn't I, right?
Sounds good.
Sounds good. And if all you want is if all you want is like a prototype or a proof of concept, then it's fine. Yeah. The challenges only come when you're looking to then push the button to kind of, I'll have more of that, please.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I have seen it from both sides, to be fair, and obviously part of the thing with what's happening with healthcare at the moment is where you've got this explosion. You've got a lot of health organizations that are under huge socioeconomic pressures, right? So a lot of our health systems are struggling to deal with a number of kind of what I call meta factors. Yeah. So aging population is a meta factor. Yeah. That's why, if you've got some spare money and you're not putting it into crypto, putting it in medical device companies right now is not a bad idea. Yeah. It's a pretty safe bet. That's going one way. So you've got that. You've got the fact that a lot of Western health systems are set up around the principle of treatment. They're not set up around the principle of prevention. And part of the reason for that is because there's a lot more money in treatment, Heath, than there is prevention.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So you've got, but the flip side for that is that when you're then looking at the health economy as an ecosystem, costs are going up all throughout that supply chain. So that combined with your kind of socioeconomic factors is driving the push for health.
Digitalizing health.
Particularly as if you're in the private sector, along with that demographic factor, you've got the fact that those people who are living longer, also their net worth is disproportional to the net worth of the generations behind them. Yeah. So you've got customers whose needs for your services are growing, and their ability to pay is growing. Yeah. And obviously that's creating a supply side froth in the market, where people then want to rush and grab that market share of that client base, because the other generations, we'll give them some old stuff, or we need to provide them with a wholesale service. So we need digitization. So our end-to-end processing of them is as frictionless as possible. So we can protect our gross margins. Yeah. But they need to get the wholesale service. Yeah. So you've got almost like a mapping between customer segmentation and the generations. Yeah. And then with the pandemic, what you've seen is a massive acceleration of that. So you've seen a massive acceleration where that existential driver of need has become a great rallying cry for, we have to share the data. Yeah, we have no choice, Heath. We have to share the data. Yeah. And of course, we were talking earlier about technology and magic and people's awareness. Okay. How many people do you know who are aware of what they sign away when they sign up to WhatsApp?
I would say 0.1%.
Right.
Right. No one.
So take that as a principle. Now apply it to healthcare. Yeah. The reality is, people are not going to care enough. They're not going to care enough about data privacy, because either you're desperate for care and you don't have the money.
Yep.
Or you're aging and you're worried about aging and you've got money.
Yeah.
Either way, data privacy is not top of your list.
Yeah.
Yeah. Getting treated
is
top of your list. Yeah. So that doesn't make the concerns invalid. But what it does do is it does mean that the sort of trends we're seeing are only going to continue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, you're asking me to compare the risks of something that's existential, my data, yeah, with something that's very real, which is I'm ill. Yeah. Right? It's not even a contest. It's not even gonna, for the vast majority of people, it's not even gonna be a point of consideration, Heath. Yeah. And so, you know, my view on that is that's going to lead to an explosion in service providers.
Yeah.
It's going to lead to a challenge to the business models. A lot of existing health providers, whether that's public sector or private sector. I can see, so for example, in the UK, and I don't say this based on any knowledge, just to be clear, it's just my personal opinion. I can see the NHS going the same way as, say, Ministry of Justice or Ministry of Defence, where they become a kind of a policy and governance organisations, and they look to increasingly outsource the orchestration of the operations themselves. Yeah. Because they have an accountability to their citizens, but there is a outside of existential events like a pandemic. It's hard, particularly when you have this kind of, I would say, almost like technological epoch developing. It's very hard for state organizations to compete with the private sector.
Oh yeah, I was going to say, they can't compete.
So what that means is it means that you're inevitably then you're going to get sort of, you know, if you look at it almost through your service catalog, your classic service catalog, you're going to get a tiering in society on the healthcare offered to them. And partly that will be driven by that strata's needs, and obviously partly on their ability to pay. And that will then have interesting repercussions in terms of areas like, say, health insurance. Because if I am a private health insurance company now, I've got so much insight now. Whereas previously, I was having to get an actuarist to work out some complex mathematical formula on how I could aggregate my risk across my portfolio. Now I've got a much clearer picture, Heath, on how much of a risk you are.
Actual risk.
And actual risk. And therefore the appropriate price range.
Premiums will be changing.
I'll take a view. Do I even want to insure, Heath? Do I even want to insure, Heath? And that will naturally then have a knock-on effect in terms of society, because what it's likely to do is it's likely to lead to, I perceive, widening gaps in society. In terms of a personal individual's ability to consume services, whether that be from the state or as particularly from the private sector. And I see that what's currently happening now in healthcare, that was already happening to a degree. It's going to be massively accelerated through this process.
Yep. You know, I think the pandemic has accelerated one digital transformation, but as you just said there with the data access and sharing, it's like putting petrol on top of the fire.
Absolutely.
So we are in for some massive change, and particularly in yourself and being around healthcare, in healthcare currently, and have a long experience in doing it. You're well positioned to offer clients, you know, advice on their transformation. So I'm conscious of the time. We're going over a little bit. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I want to recap what you said. I wanted to, at the end of this, I'll cut this part out, but I'll do the intro and I'll talk about what we are and your background so that we cover that. But I'll wrap up and say what these things here about the seven steps or the 7 criteria that you use in your approach to help the clients transform. First off, number 1 was the purpose. Make sure everyone's clear on the purpose. There's a major part there. I think we touched on it, but I wanted to say, we talk about the culture. You know, like I'm a big fan or advocate of the culture. Eat strategy for breakfast. If you dismiss this culture, forget about how great your strategy is. It's, you know, you're dead in the water before you started. But you're part of that purpose is very clear at the front, at a very clear the vision and the outcome that you want to achieve. You said the history, so you did some research before, and I think there's a lesson there for our peers and colleagues, is that I like the example from the previous client of mine, the massive implementation was very similar to the next one. What did you learn? And I think what I've seen from my career is they'll have this term, lessons learned, but when you inspect the lessons learned or trying to read those lessons learned, they're not very usable. They're like the notes that someone did on the back of a fag packet and said, this is what we learned. So, well, how do we use that now? You know, they need to be useful. So when the exercise comes, like I talk about it in the book, is that the project doesn't finish at delivery. The project should actually finish after the lessons learned are captured. So everyone's just like you talked about that the business have the battle scars. They've been through this before and they don't want. And so when you get to delivery and they've delivered, the business goes, oh, I'm glad those guys are finished now. And then so no one's interested in doing lessons learned. So when the lessons learned are captured, they're not really done well, or they're incomplete. But you know, you called that up as like the second thing to do, is that you did the history to understand what worked before. So reuse the things that worked and drop the things that didn't. I think the key part there for everyone, not just for us in transformation, is about the longevity of what we're in now globally. It's here for a while and we have to live with it. So, you know, it's not an overnight success. We're gonna fix it. It's it's here and we're gonna live with it. And I think a good part there you talked about was the impacts. So what now? You've understood the context and lessons. So what? What impact does that have? And so you applied the thinking of what impact, what insights does that tell you, and how you use that information. Then that was your data-driven element. So you use the element of evidence-based, evidence from past and current data. So I think that
you've got to make the conversation. You've got to take it away from sentiment. Yeah. So you've got the real value of data-driven insights it really helps you to tackle that culture piece, because it enables, once you get people to accept the data sets you're using, it makes it harder for them to then reject the insights those data sets provide.
Yeah, that's so that's like the antidote to the strong culture.
Yeah.
I'm going to quote you on that one. So maybe even make a meme out of that. So you have a strong background and also in technology as well. So to be saying things around culture is from a guy that has a strong background in technology. It's almost I don't want to say an oxymoron, but it's a paradigm shift for I think technology guys to think about anything other than technology. Yeah. So I take my hat off to you for that. That's that I would like to see personally that technology guys, if they acknowledged, hey, we've got a culture thing here. If we just can't go rock up and try and change this business by implementing some new system, we've got to understand a few things, and one of them being the way that people work, the way they interact with each other. How strong is that bond? What brings them together? If we're going to try and break that, this is not going to be an overnight, activity. This is a long plan. Like this current client I'm helping right now, they wanted to call the process that we're trying to change or improve a common process optimization. And I said, okay, you're trying to optimize this process to make it more efficient, right? Okay, yep. You originally had one process, but now it's morphed into 12. And so it got different divisions across the organization, made it fit for their own purpose. And now you're telling me you want to harmonize it and put it back together. Are you sure that's what you want to do? I said, okay, let's just say we do that. But I think what we've just done is we've just sped up of like we're the Titanic. We've just lined the deck chairs up. No one's talked about turning the ship. We just made ourselves faster. So I said, now we got to call it what it is. If you now think this is a transformation, we're not talking not about making our process faster or implementing technology. We're talking about people here. People are changing.
Yeah. And how many instances have you come across, Heath, of RPA where clients have taken their existing procedures and just poured them into the RPA tool? And it's like, great, you've become much, much more efficient on doing the wrong things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly it. You've just, I had a guest on just before who said something very similar. It was like, now you're almost the same words. You have faster doing the wrong thing. Yeah, rubbish in, rubbish out. You've just been faster at getting bad results. Yeah. So the lesson there would be probably step back a little bit to the start of the process, understand the problem, as you said when you're framing, which I think that was the next one. You understood the frame that allowed you to get some form of control to help them scope a solution.
Yeah.
And that part there, I think for our colleagues is you're leading them to the water, but you're not making them drink. You're showing them the trough. Yep.
Correct. I'm not leading them to the solution. I'm leading them to the space where I can help them find the solution. Yeah. Yep. And I think a lot of our colleagues conflate those two.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And I mean, even when you talk about, again, classic example of that, Heath, is product vendors. Yeah. Product vendors will come to you saying they're selling you the solution. Yeah. Right.
Yep. The old solution. Yeah, that's a misnomer, that one. It's not so easy. What you got is a technology tool or product. The solution includes more than just this technology product. Most likely there are 4 levers we can pull: people, process, technology, and data. And what's probably overwrapping that is the culture.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then but that's the 6th step or the 6th part is you suggest. And through your previous experience, you've learned and you can't force the horse to drink. So it is a suggestive. So to the points we agreed of ownership, that when they feel that was their idea, then they have more ownership in the solution.
Yeah, like if they don't have ownership in the solution, then by implication, you're suggesting that you own it, right?
Yep. And then you I think a good part for our colleagues, I'm guilty of that too. I would like to, because the answers, is your facilitation versus insights. Is that, you know, like you keep the, let's say, the ace of spades up the sleeve or in the back pocket, you know the answer, but you are, as you just said, the allowing the space for them to have that discovery, to come to their own realization, but you provided the frame and the space for them to have that conversation. Yeah. Without, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, very good. Yep.
And it's interesting you play that back to me, because that's not I don't have a handbook, Heath, where I've written out those steps. Yeah. That's clearly, though, you know, some kind of subconscious system that I adapted and developed over the course of my career.
Yeah.
That's now
a part of your behavior. Yeah. You do it by almost habit.
Correct. Yeah. It's the muscle memory. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't know it unless it's known in the muscle, right?
Yep. So I think then, you know, you talked about the beginning about you being proactive instead of reactive. Then I think there's probably a book in there.
I think there probably is.
Yeah.
I think there probably is.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you could even make a book out of your 7 steps there.
Yeah.
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 I could probably do so. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. I hadn't come onto this thinking about writing a book. But no, I think you're probably right.
I tell you what, I didn't think about writing a book either. And next thing you know, there's a book. And yeah, so, you know, hey.
Yeah.
If the shoe fits.
Well, I might be able to find room for it on the shelves behind me. Right?
Yeah. So their quote was, "It's the most important book you read is not the book you read, is the book you write." Yeah. I think that actually was Daniel Priestley. There's a young Australian guy. Do you know the guy?
I know the name.
He wrote The Key Person of Influence, Oversubscribed, The Entrepreneur's Journey, and there's one other one that he's just got out. I can't recall it. I met him a couple of times. Yeah, he's got a good story. There's the Key Person of Influence actually would probably been a thing that helped me think about writing a book. And so there's, if I could offer you anything in exchange for sharing your insights today, it would be that read that book and then write your book.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll buy it. We'll do an exchange. I'll send you a signed copy and you send me a signed copy.
That sounds fair, Heath.
Cool. Okay, my man. Thank you very much. 10:30. It's still, you're in the UK, so it's the same time for me. Okay, same time for you. All right. Thank you, Nate. Much appreciated for your time.
No problems.
Look out for the episode. I'll keep you updated.
Great. Cheers, Heath.
Thank you, mate. Take it easy. Bye.